Today, we're speaking with Peter Reid. Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Sure, thanks, man. Well, I always sort of start off sort of saying that I'm sort of a management consultant by trade. I spent sort of 4 or 5 years at McKinsey in London, and prior to that, joined a kind of startup consultancy in London, and then did an MBA in between the two in Singapore and in France at INSEAD. But I guess increasingly, I've now been with MSQ going on for 15 years, and CEO will be 12 years this year. So I suppose I'm also becoming a bit of a more of a Marcoms industry veteran at the same time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And tell me a little bit about MSQ and the journey.
Sure. So we took the business private in the end of 2011, and sort of really that was we saw some great agencies within a larger public company, and just kind of saw the opportunity to kind of move into private ownership and then kind of build a group that was really fashioned around what we saw as the future of marketing and then subsequently of technology. And as you say, we now have the kind of actually there's 10 individual agency capabilities that really address both the kind of classic marketing or CMO agenda, but also increasingly sort of MarTech and pure tech driven capabilities as well. So we're kind of increasingly trying to bring together the CTO and CMO agenda.
That's excellent. And, always as someone who's an old marketer myself, I'm heartened by the fact that it seems to be a very, very hot area right now. I think that if we looked back a couple of years in the early days of the pandemic, we might have been a little bit nervous, but tell me about what's happening right now.
Sure. I think it's both, it's a really interesting time from a kind of client and agency point of view, but I think reflecting what you say, that there's actually people really see the value in the industry, whether that's an investor or client. And so I think there's been more interest in the sector over the last 2-3 years than perhaps there has been for the 15 years before. And I think it's also a fascinating time to be in the business because there has been, on the one hand, things stay the same. I still think creativity and traditional marketing strategy is really important. But actually, with the shift to digital and data-driven comms, I think the landscape is changing more than it ever probably has done since kind of media and creative were initially kind of uncoupled a number of years ago. I think particularly you've seen consultancies kind of coming in and playing more in some areas, particularly the digital transformation end. But then I think like MSQ, I think for me the really interesting bit is this more sort of data and tech enabled model. That is, I think, slightly reshaping the industry, certainly on a kind of from our point of view in the UK, but I think increasingly internationally.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've seen some of the big consultancies like Accenture obviously move into the marketing space. I think initially a little bit more in the media side and then more and more into the creative side, trying to kind of bundle it all together. And you have new models, obviously, like S4, like what Sorrell's doing. And he seems to be following you guys in a way, which is really more focused on that kind of bridge between the technology and the marketing space. And we see a lot of, I would say the interesting thing I'm noticing, and just be curious to get your take on it, is maybe that pullback that we saw a couple of years ago seems to be opening up again, and we're seeing companies really grow. So it seems to be a good time. Tell me more about if there's excitement in the marketplace, or what's your feel?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's always an industry where you've got to be on your game and you've got to perform well with pitches and etc. But I mean, we've grown organically 30% this year on the back of a pretty good year, kind of through the COVID year. And actually, that may be better than some of the bigger companies, but even most of the holding companies have kind of got back to growth. So I think it's the basic tenets of the industry I think are in really good shape, and I think what you're seeing with clients is fundamentally they're getting even more on a kind of growth agenda, and that they're recognizing that they not only need to drive sales but actually need to invest in brands again, and that's driven a lot of that as well. And I think for us personally, with it, we've sort of developed a model whereby we can deliver internationally, but without having sort of people on the ground everywhere. And I think pushing that into a sort of personalized content and almost bringing the creativity back into sort of data-driven marketing, I think is a hugely interesting kind of growth area. And I think it's hard, but if you get it right, I think there's great opportunities for brands, and there's hence great opportunities for agencies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably would be remiss to not talk a little bit about the last couple of years. You know, it's been a tumultuous moment for a lot of groups, and there have been some big trends that have kind of shaped the industry coming out of that. Most notably, things like, you know, the great battle for talent, or how to rethink about how you attract talent. And I'd just be curious to hear how you guys are looking at that space.
Yeah, so we've really since we took the business private, we've always had this employee shareholder model whereby the top 100 people in the group are shareholders in the group, and you know that's been fundamental to our collaborative model, but it's also been fundamental to our attraction of talent. So you know, I'd say over the medium term, without being complacent about it, we found that combination of that sort of share structure, but also this ability to kind of work in a medium-sized agile environment has been really attractive to kind of particularly kind of senior talents. But I think we are going to face more challenges, and we are facing more challenges kind of, particularly in the 12 months ahead. And I think it's no great surprise, but in the digital transformation space and the tech space, it is really hard to kind of keep up with demand. I mean, the great thing is you've got kind of growth rates we're seeing of 30, 40, 50, 60%. But then the thing that's holding you back, taking advantage of those, is getting the right talent and the right mix of talent, and then kind of, keeping them motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really interesting moment. And certainly a lot of companies are in desperate need for what MSQ is offering. Tell me a little bit, though, as you look forward, Peter. I mean, here we are at the beginning of 2022. It's a big year. It seems like we're living in the future. Tell me what the year holds for you guys.
So, I mean, for us, it's, we really think this is the year to start kind of realizing our international ambitions. And so the model we have, where we have the individual capabilities, and then we have the MSQ multidisciplinary model that sits on top of that, is working really well in the UK. But last year we made some initial moves into the US, kind of launched the MSQ offer. We've sort of similarly done similar things in Asia, but they're really becoming the focus of our attention, particularly my attention. We've had some couple of really nice wins in sort of global wins out of the US at the end of last year. But I think, really the opportunity for us is to knit that together internationally. And I think if we do that, it just kind of unlocks another sort of level of client opportunities, the opportunity to really kind of drive that consistent work on an international basis. And, I think that's really exciting. And, coming back to your point on Sorrel and things like that, I don't think really anyone has completely cracked that and is really able to kind of offer the agile and kind of creative-led model, but still kind of data and tech enabled alongside it. And I'm sure we've got work to do as well, but we feel like there's a great opportunity to kind of seize there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that it's always a balance. I think someone like a Sorrel will be thinking about it really from where the margins are. So he's assessing kind of it from a banker's perspective, and that you can see that in the acquisitions that he's done. But the model that you're highlighting, I think, is quite interesting, which is placing creative back into that performance lens and building that out is something key. And I think, when you're talking to an old marketer here, and a lot of the new business models in the marketing space, whether it have been, media independence, really kind of companies like BBH over the years, companies that really kind of challenged the model. Naked, if you remember Naked, right? Everyone, they all seem to come out of the UK. So there you go. So so maybe MSQ will add themselves to that list and take the industry to the next level. It's a really interesting time, and I think obviously what you guys are delivering is fascinating. If someone wanted to learn more about what MSQ is working on, where can they find you?
So if you start with the website, msqpartners.com clearly gives you a great view. And then if you're kind of jumping off from there via the website, we've got kind of Joined Up Thinking, which is our kind of content platform that sits alongside. And then you can also kind of the individual agencies all have their own websites as well. So hopefully kind of lots of opportunities to find out more.
Excellent. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on Uncaged today. We've been speaking with Peter Reid. He's the founder and chief executive officer at MSQ Partners. MSQ has been around for, I guess about 12 years plus at this stage, right? And has really grown to be a large agency group with plans to expand internationally, over 850 people, delivering a full range of creative all the way through to technology solutions. Really excited to see where the team goes this year, Peter, and thank you so much for being on Uncaged today.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.